My name is Ethan, and I am 63 years old. People say that when a man reaches his 60s, life should slow down. They imagine peaceful evenings, warm meals with family, and the quiet comfort of knowing that the hardest years are behind you. For most of my life, that was exactly what I believed too. I spent more than 40 years working as a carpenter. My hands carried the marks of every house I built, every door I hung, and every table I crafted. The work was hard, but it was honest, and it allowed me to give my family a good life. My wife, Margaret, used to say that a man's greatest wealth is not money, but the love waiting for him at home. For many years, that love was real. Margaret passed away 8 years ago after a long illness. Losing her felt like losing the center of my world, but I kept moving forward because we had a son, Daniel. He was the pride of my life, the boy I had worked so hard to raise. I paid for his education, helped him buy his first car, and even used my savings to help him purchase his first house. When he married a woman named Claire 3 years ago, I truly believed my family was growing stronger. I was wrong. At first, Claire seemed polite. She smiled, spoke softly, and always called me Dad. But over time, the warmth in her voice slowly faded. Her smiles became forced, and her patience with me grew thinner each day. After Margaret died, Daniel asked me to move in with them. Dad, he said, you shouldn't live alone. Come stay with us. It sounded like love, like family. But living in their house slowly made me feel like a guest who had overstayed his welcome. Claire often complained about small things. The electricity bill. The groceries. Even the chair I liked to sit in near the window. I tried to stay quiet and helpful. I cooked when I could, fixed things around the house, and kept to myself most of the time. But no matter how careful I was, I always felt like I was in the way. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Sunday evening. Claire had prepared dinner, and we were all sitting at the table. The room smelled like roasted chicken and garlic bread. For a moment, it almost felt like the family dinners we used to have when Margaret was alive. Daniel was scrolling through his phone while Claire served the food. I tried to make conversation. Daniel, I said gently, I fixed the loose step on the porch today. He nodded without looking up. That's good, Dad. Claire suddenly slammed the serving spoon onto the table. The sharp sound made me jump. She looked directly at me, her face red with frustration. You know what? She said loudly. The room went silent. Then she shouted the words that I will never forget. You are a burden to my family. Get out. For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. But the anger in her eyes told me I hadn't. Daniel slowly lifted his head from his phone. Instead of defending me, he looked uncomfortable, almost embarrassed. Claire, he said quietly, calm down. But she wasn't done. No, she continued, I'm tired of pretending. Your father lives here, eats our food, uses our electricity, and does nothing but sit around. Those words cut deeper than she could imagine. Because the truth was that every nail in that house had once been hammered by my own hands. I had helped Daniel buy that house. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I slowly put my fork down. The room felt heavy, like the air itself had turned thick. I stood up from the table. At 63 years old, I had learned something important about dignity. Sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is walk away. I'm sorry you feel that way, I said calmly. Claire crossed her arms. Well, now you know. I looked at my son. For a brief moment, I hoped he would say something, anything. But Daniel just stared at the table. That silence hurt more than Claire's words. So I nodded once and walked to my room. I didn't shout, I didn't argue. I simply packed a small suitcase with the few things that truly mattered. Some clothes, Margaret's photograph, and the old watch she had given me on our 30th anniversary. When I walked back into the hallway, Daniel was standing there. Dad, maybe we should talk about this tomorrow, he said. I looked at him for a long moment. No, son, I replied softly, some things don't need tomorrow. Then I walked out the front door. The night air was cool and the street was quiet. For a moment I stood on the sidewalk, unsure where to go. But strangely, I didn't feel angry. I felt free. You see, there was something Daniel and Claire didn't know. 10 years earlier, Margaret and I had purchased a small lakeside cottage about 2 hours outside the city. It was meant to be our retirement place, a quiet spot where we planned to grow old together. After Margaret died, I rarely visited it. But that night, I got into my old truck and drove straight there. The road was dark, and the headlights cut through the silence as memories filled my mind. Margaret laughing. Daniel as a little boy running through the yard. Family dinners filled with warmth. By the time I reached the cottage, the sun was beginning to rise. The lake looked like glass, reflecting the pale morning sky. For the first time in years, I breathed deeply. And it felt like peace. Over the next few months, something unexpected happened. I started living again. I repaired the old cottage, built new furniture, and planted a small garden. The neighbors were kind people, mostly retirees who appreciated good conversation and simple living. One of them, a widowed woman named Helen, often brought homemade pies. "You remind me of my husband," she once said. "He was a carpenter too." Life slowly filled with quiet joy. Meanwhile, Daniel called a few times. At first, he sounded uncomfortable. Then one day, 6 months later, he drove to the cottage. When he stepped out of his car, he looked older, tired. "Dad," he said quietly, "I'm sorry." I didn't ask for details. But I learned later that Claire had left him after a series of financial problems. The house had been sold, and Daniel was struggling to rebuild his life. We sat on the porch together that afternoon, watching the lake. "I should have defended you," he admitted. "Yes," I said gently, "you should have." He lowered his head. But I placed my hand on his shoulder. "Everyone makes mistakes, son. What matters is what we learn from them." Daniel visited often after that. Our relationship slowly healed. And one evening, while watching the sunset over the water, he said something that stayed with me. "Dad, you didn't deserve what happened." I smiled softly. "Maybe not," I said, "but it led me here." The lake shimmered in the fading light. And in that quiet moment, I realized something important. Life doesn't end when people reject you. Sometimes that's exactly when it begins. Moral of the story: respect and love cannot be forced. But dignity is something you can always protect. When people treat you like a burden, remember this. Walking away may hurt at first, but it can lead you to the life you truly deserve.